left-handed. Let's see it. Hey guys, today we are here in Chris Como's living room lab, and we are trying to understand how to swing it faster. I don't know if you know, but I'm backwards and upside down while doing all this. Back in Arizona with my hands healed up, which is what I've been trying to figure out for the past 4 years.
You want to do that now?
Yeah. Well, I want to see the speed differences first.
Yeah. So in this situation here, Kyle, Bryson, so he's not getting to peak speed where Kyle is, but Kyle's slowing faster or earlier, and then he has longer to put that acceleration back in. So the grip speeds are the same, basically.
This is grip speed?
This is grip speed, and club speed was basically
This is club head speed.
Sorry, grip speed is the same thing.
This is club head speed.
Same, basically same.
So
This is grip speed.
So that dotted line's the blue line, or that dotted line's the top of the backswing?
Yeah.
And then the second dotted line is impact. Okay.
Club head may be going further for Bryson, for Kyle, because of the way it tracks. So club head speed, he's faster obviously in the backswing as Kyle than Bryson, but he's decelerating earlier. And then he's transitioning earlier. So he has longer in the downswing to put that speed in.
But look how interesting it is. Like, we're literally on the same track of acceleration, but mine tapers off and his keeps peaking.
Just because he had same force over a longer time.
Same force.
It exponentially.
Same force,
Yeah.
That's what's really interesting. It's the same force.
So you don't need to put more
So it's about
force
the
in.
backswing.
Yeah, but you're going faster later in the backswing. So if you went faster back, you're already beating him.
That's why pausing at the top helps. That's why he said pausing the tops.
Can
Top is like a big
we
deal.
see the grip speed real quick?
Yeah, it's right here.
What's the angular travel in our downswing for the club?
I'm going to take these hand paths off so you can see it a little better. So if you look down here, you can see the actual graph while the clubs are moving. So right here
It's peak for him. Peak for both of you, basically.
is kind of peak for both.
Supposed to be
You're
peaks
peaking
about-
earlier,
Bryson
slightly.
peaks about right here.
That's pure club speed.
So it's taking it back faster, almost.
But like we said, he's taking on a
Peaks
different
right
path
there.
than
It's
you.
taking a longer path.
Rotating. So it's, yes.
So Chris, can we calculate that? Chris brought up a good point. Like that path is coming more inside. How much speed is he getting from that?
How much further to travel?
You just said, let me pull up, can you pull up the angular velocity of each club? Like I would
You
imagine,
don't have angular velocity.
I would imagine the angular velocity of Kyle is significantly faster with the.
Nipper, send me this club data and I'll do.
Can you do
But
that?
on it.
so like it's,
Your computer?
so let's do the grip. Can we do the grip speed real quick? Can we pull the grip speed graph?
Well, I think he's just taking it on a longer path.
Go ahead.
So point A to point B, they're covering the same distance, but he's taking it a longer route.
Is that why?
And that's why the speed is
How
higher.
much speed is that though?
You
So
just need
Bryce
the
is
angular
gonna-
velocity and have it multiplied by it.
What's club head speed?
He was at 10, I think.
That's club head speed. That's the delta right there. That's
Oh.
the difference. That's
At that point?
That's him. That's the speed. This gives the delta.
Well, is that at the same point, or is it a different?
That's a different point.
Yeah,
It's
you
right
gotta
where you
line it
guys
up. Line it up,
say
so right there.
spot.
Is it changing at all? Oh, that's 11 still. Still 11. Focus mine is about the same. That's why. I actually almost go down in speed.
So kind of in layman's terms, he's breaking. That's the time. It's a timing. He's putting the same force in there.
I'm putting
It's a breaking.
right?
If those times are the same, Kyle's transitioning earlier with the speed back, isn't he? He's accelerating the same over a longer period. Because those are equally matched, and the grip speed is basically equally matched. So it's not a grip speed difference.
Right before, so to me, this drop off here, this higher acceleration, this drop off tells me that he's transferring it to the
Into the
club
head. I'm not.
better.
You're still applying.
But that's
He's
a
got it to
result
the head.
of this transition there, right? I mean, that's happening because of this.
No, I think it's because of
He's not dragging it more.
I'm dragging.
He's slamming the brakes on the hands and transferring it more efficiently to the club.
Right.
He's literally a human
You're
slingshot
maintaining
at
it
every
longer.
segment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
But no,
no,
he's
yeah.
he's that guy who is like a walking rubber band. Like he stretches out the
Like
cycle
he could
very
throw
efficient.
if he trained, he could throw a baseball 100 miles
Yeah.
an hour.
Yeah.
So I'm
would
sorry, I'm
be
just
that
trying to get
guy,
my bearings. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mike. So we have them synced at impact, right? So impact's exactly the same, right?
Grip speed?
Club head speed.
No.
Well, club speed's not even the same in impact.
No, I'm saying this one time with the timing.
Yeah.
Okay, time, yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you go back to club head speed real quick? Okay, so we're saying club head speed is the same, and then we're looking at, or not just club head speed, we're saying impact's the same.
Yes.
Where that yellow line and the blue line, that's where it hits
The
impact
differential.
is the difference in speed. We're saying that his zero, where he changes direction at the top of the swing, is happening way earlier relative
And his deceleration is earlier.
to impact. It's relative to impact, right? So how much of that is just a function of him having a longer swing?
Well,
He's decelerating.
what shaft might be you playing versus head?
Same.
Same on this one.
So the fact that he's
Think about
changed,
shaft deflection.
because all we're saying his change of direction, club head speed wise, he's going backswing and then it slows down and then it changes direction to his downswing, right? It's happening earlier relative to impact than Bryson is. That's just
but
it's just the length of the swing.
But on the grip speed, when you're talking about applying more force, you're already applying the same amount of force or the same grip speed. So more grip speed wouldn't necessarily increase club speed. He's already the same grip speed coming down.
So look at the grip
Look
speed.
at the grip speed.
Go back to the
brain
grip
speed
speed.
is
Because it's the hand deceleration right
is higher
before
in
impact.
Kyle's than it is.
So look, see how the grip speed stops and mine keeps going.
Yeah,
So my hand speed is going this way, where he's literally stopping.
Snap.
going.
sure. But that's gonna be more to the angular velocity of the club. That's gonna have a bigger relationship to the angular velocity.
Yeah.
But it also increases club head speed.
Correct. Yeah, 100%. But I'm saying it's going to increase club head speed because the angular velocity is going to be higher. So it's basically saying you're moving. You guys are most moving that part of the club the same speed, but for him, that part is moving much faster than that, and that's why the angular velocity is higher. But I'm just saying that if we're looking at this backswing part of why that starts earlier, it's just earlier relative to impact. It's not earlier in the backswing. It's a longer time from when his impact time is. That would just be a function of a longer backswing.
And his deceleration's faster in the back.
Separate
Yeah,
thing. I'm saying
deceleration.
a separate thing. I'm saying that's a separate thing.
But
I'm
when you were saying you want to accelerate more in the backswing, you're already ahead of him in the backswing in speed. So it's not that wouldn't necessarily correlate to more club speed.
No, it
for
doesn't.
him,
Yeah.
he's already hit him.
Yeah, correct.
totally.
So chasing that rabbit wouldn't necessarily
Yeah, but
get you further.
and that's when we look at his swing.
Yeah.
Bryson's got a faster backswing. That's why when we said the club hit speed was higher with Kyle, it was like,
Kyle has a faster backswing.
Yes.
well, if we look at it,
From a timing perspective, it's faster. From a
Yeah.
speed perspective, it's
It-
Kyle's faster.
exactly. The club head, that's why I said my alarm bells are going off, because you're saying his club head speed's faster, but that's because of the angular velocity, not because he's got a faster timing
That's
backswing.
what we need to measure.
Which
That's
is
what
very
we need
different,
to find
right?
out like how much
misleading.
speed
But
that
then if
is
you look at
creating.
grip speed,
Yeah.
that's not going to be as much different as a club.
Correct.
That's not going to go through as different a range of motion.
Correct. So now all of a sudden, for example,
That's a better indicator than
Now,
what we're talking
now,
about.
for example, instead of, this is where we'll see a big difference. Now sync it up, instead of from impact, sync it up from start of the backswing. And this is where I think you're gonna see Bryson's swing actually go faster.
What do you mean start or top backswing?
Huh?
Start or top backswing?
Start, from like when the club first velocity
So
going
match
back.
that.
And this is gonna make, this is why I think the interpretation we're doing right now is like a little, it's
You're
gonna,
looking, you want grip
They
speed,
are.
right?
yeah, but sync them up so to where they're, yeah,
Grip speed, right?
Yeah.
sure.
Okay. So here's sync, and I'm pulling them together at the same time.
Can we start it though to where the graphs, so where impact's actually at different times?
No, because it's not a time measurement. Oh no, it is a time
Yeah, it's on
measurement.
the bottom, yeah.
What are you asking?
So I just want first velocity of the butt end to be
Because
synced
we don't
together.
have the same impact time. His
We
is a
take
lot.
off the sync. Just have them both be raw, side-by-side comparisons. So instead of being synced up to impact, they're not synced to anything.
But you don't want me to sync.
No
Sorry,
sync.
we're gonna see like Bryson's swing's gonna look a lot faster going back,
And faster to impact.
Look
but
how
the
much-
club head's will be different.
Look how much more shaft deflection there is on the way back. How much that
Can we pull
Kyle
up
creates.
so these graphs, can we pull up these graphs now?
And for the simple
Okay,
mind,
that's
Bryson
super
is
interesting.
not in
I'm
blue,
sorry?
right?
Yeah, I don't particularly don't find that interesting. One, it could be air, two, it could be a This is where, in my opinion, this is where I would really love to see these impacts, to see the timing.
When you look at the backswings, you add the backswings, you add the downswings, that's gonna give you the timing difference.
We could do
Look at that, you see that? So backswing, downswing, and that goes all the way to impact. We add those two up and that's the difference in time.
We I mean, we have a thing that shows the whole swing time, right?
Yeah.
How's the backswing?
Well, the timing changes. Like the amount of time is actually the variable in how they're solving for their impact solution.
That's why these
That's why the time differences are different. Yeah.
And then we sync them at these key frames. You know, when the swing stops, you know, that's at a different time, but then we have to have a place to basically, you know, sync those together. But I see what you're saying.
Because the golf swing times in total aren't the same.
No.
Do you know?
So how is it going to impact?
That's gotta be, he's gotta be
So you-
pouring a lot of different force on that backswing.
Yeah, you're definitely.
So
Bryson's faster. No, yeah, slower going back.
Slower going back. The shaft is bending a lot more coming back,
And
That's-
it's faster down.
and it's faster down.
And I have less speed.
It's more this,
So that, you have same grip speed. So you just don't get it to that as much.
Yep.
You have to.
I've always known that.
Matches up the ratio.
So
of
let's
backwards and forwards.
takeaway be different. So it's not normalizing.
Yeah, I think that we gotta,
Okay, so
we gotta do that option for sure.
Yeah.
Let's just look at this real quick. So this is where like I'm trying to like not like lose sight of the smell test. So it's like okay, your backswing
Oh
is
no, it is
faster early,
normalizing.
and then his goes faster late.
Yeah.
Okay, now watch.
is that late from the angular? Is he getting it faster because of the shape of where that clump is, and it's flatter more inside, it's longer.
I'm not talking about the velocity. I'm just talking about like how quickly he gets to like
Okay.
the input of backswing.
Right.
So
Bryson's
at
faster
least,
late,
at least
though.
at the end of the day, when we're talking about club head speed, that's not a vector, right? That's like a scalar unit. So we're not saying like on what plane of motion, right? That's not correct. Like,
Right.
yeah,
That's correct.
So the butt end for Kyle is traveling not as much this way, but kind of higher.
It's more angular.
He's got a lot more angular
we need
displacement.
the angular.
He's got a lot more angular
we need the
displacement.
angular
Exactly.
representation of this motion.
Yeah.
And Kate,
I'll grab that for you guys.
Okay.
And then on the way down, this is where Bryson gets to impact way faster. This is what I want to see, right? But his club head speed's a lot faster because of the angular motion again. So this is where it's like, I just don't want to like lose kind of track of what
Sure.
we're actually watching, you know? I think what's super interesting though is how much faster Kyle's like last 3/4 of the backswing is.
I do too.
Because at the end of the day, if he's spinning up in that last 3/4 of the backswing, that's going to have more momentum late. He's going to have to slow down, which might be
that's what
more
John
of
was
that.
saying.
I think he's pulling more of a stretch shortening cycle. I think he's
What?
got more elastic tissues.
Careful, Mike Duffey doesn't believe a stretch shortening cycle happens in a golf swing.
Hey,
yeah.
Chris.
I think he's getting that stretch behind his shoulder. I think it's
But
a rubber band.
this is a little bit of like a semantic debate, right? Mike, jump in there. This is like interesting. We're here.
Yeah, it depends on if you mean the original stretch shorten cycle or what people talk about now.
Fair enough. It's a language issue, right?
That's why I said yesterday was like a little bit of semantics thing, right? So it's like
So Kyle's not faster later.
it seems like he's faster later.
So his club speed's dropping.
Well,
Right,
but it's
that's
faster at a
because-
certain point. Like right here, he's faster, and then it gets slower.
Yes.
But it's
Yeah.
Michael, can you pull up their either grip or head pads?
loading better. Like loading the muscles better, almost. That's what I'm saying.
And what's your definition of grip?
Bryson has a wider arc there.
So funny.
But his is more this way, so it's
Yeah,
going to look
yeah,
wider.
that's actually true. That's actually a good point, John.
It could be
Mr. 3.
perspective.
Visually, yeah, it's 2D and 3D.
Yeah, instead of you spinning to the side, he may have.
So this is
Yeah, so he's more back. Yeah.
So that on a 2D video, it's going to look different.
so
That might be a better way to look at that when you say, John, right there.
Yeah.
Pretty similar there.
Can we? Is there a way to see like the total distance the grip traveled on both
Yeah.
of them?
so
That's what I want to see.
so
but I don't
it's-
think it's
don't
specific.
have that.
It doesn't have
We
passes.
can do that too.
So this is what's interesting, right? So it's like we're looking at the club at speed.
Can you
It's not-
export the path?
Hey, Mike, and Kate, would you say
Can you export it?
the deceleration of that velocity
Yeah, that's-
can be an
that's
indication
no problem
of how
getting
much
that
he's
in.
loading?
Do you want to?
Mike, okay, so, and Kate, so we look at this club and speed graph approaching the top of the swing. The slope of that would be an indication of how much deceleration he's having at the top,
Or
right?
opposite acceleration.
That's what I'm saying, deceleration.
Sorry.
It is negative, positive deceleration. I mean, or negative,
Deceleration.
negative acceleration, right? So, I understand,
Still
yeah.
accelerating.
Semantics,
So
right?
that slope could be an indicator of that deceleration, which could tie into the loading component.
Correct.
Would you agree with that?
I see that.
So to
See,
me,
and
that's
it's riddled in every other sport.
so that to me is
Well,
more
it's like,
saying,
think about this. What if he had 80 miles an hour at this peak and it was a sharp peak?
right.
He would be able to load the muscles way more.
So he's slowing that down quickly, which is low, which is
Well, it just loads. It's like everything's starting to
Yeah.
go, right?
How's his like grip like? Is he more like this?
He's like this. Yeah.
So that's loading that way.
yeah,
That's whereas you have no. Yours is like that. His is like that.
yeah.
That's harder to change direction. I imagine that's loading still in this wrist.
But even his grip speed's got like more of a sharper slope of the deceleration.
Yeah, and that, John, that has a
Yeah.
that is a long time to go before release.
Yeah.
Well, there's two
So
parts.
that-
there's a loading it in the wrist.
That's going to be used a little
Deceleration of that,
differently.
and there's deceleration of the
No,
actual
I'm just
body.
saying from like he's got there's
And
more
these
loading
are-
going on here still, isn't there? There is a rise.
Body.
Yeah.
His angle isn't changing.
Right, I'm just talking like
Okay.
how that nets
Would you agree with
that.
that?
Yeah, but wouldn't you say
Uh,
it hinges more than it has more?
The club's still loading on
Well,
him
not necessarily.
On
more than.
Because
I mean, the distance it's going
how
is
strong you are to
maybe
unload.
not below.
Fair enough, but imagine you
I need
swung a
to-
half
I-
swing. 'Cause you're
I need to
half
review
full
that one.
Yeah,
versus
the load
fully
on
closed.
Bryson
For sure,
would be
we
great,
know
especially
that
because
for
his
sure.
would be harder to change.
But it could be more
Yeah.
of a-
Okay. Yes, that's very possible.
Whereas Kyle is more of that kind
Or
of.
a,
Yeah, he's
rhythmical-
really letting it go
Letting
further.
it go.
you see, there's like a, yeah.
So, regardless of the name of the mechanism, Kyle's creating more opportunity for earlier force production.
Yeah, and you can see that through the slope of that graph.
Is that because of faster hand motion or faster club head motion at the top or close to the top?
Probably more of the slope of it too, though.
It is, now in reality,
Negative acceleration.
the club is lower on the list. We'd be looking at pelvis to torso and arm to short.
This is interesting.
Arm to torso.
Because if I feel like I go like
Yeah,
that, almost like,
yeah,
right?
yeah. This is where like you're just playing with like
Instead of
right slow
right.
right. It's almost like this is what's interesting. It's almost like maybe because you're starting so fast early that your deceleration happens earlier but more gradual.
Yeah, and so I don't load the muscles as
Yeah.
well.
Whereas if it was like slower but then faster, now all of a sudden to make it stop,
It-
it's got to be a quicker deceleration.
So you're burning more energy earlier.
And
Acceleration. So
yeah.
you're wasting energy earlier.
Say that again.
You're wasting energy in how you're decelerating too early.
Right. You disperse forward. You disperse energy into the muscle,
Yeah.
or out of the muscles.
You're slowing the whole thing down, just drag
And that creates more.
less muscle
Momentum.
momentum.
Well, when you slow it down really quick, like an impulse has a great force output potential on negative momentum perspective of it.
That's right. If you
Right.
keep in
You're
mind
trying
that
to take away.
you got
I'm dispersing, I'm slowly doing it, which isn't going to produce that much force.
Maybe that's
so there are kind of three main transition areas where this can happen. The arm to club or the wrist is that one has the most play because you've got so much time that we're looking at one of these three options, and it may be the one you don't need to look at yet.
You're talking about pelvis to trunk,
Yes,
trunk to arm,
Yes.
arm to club. You're saying we're just looking at
you
arm
have
to club
huge
right now.
opportunities there.
Which one?
From hips through shoulder complex.
Oh, okay.
So just focusing on this one is nice, but there are a lot of options with the other ones.
yeah.
So you're saying that this isn't as big of a deal as like the trunk to pelvis?
There's a lot of mass there. And at your arm strength and club, what you're going to be able to do in the first quarter of downswing, you can hold off the club and have plenty of opportunity to take that and and using the rest of your downswing.
So what's funny, when I feel like I'm moving my fastest, is when it's, I'll just show you guys, this is what I feel. And that, boom, this way, and it's a, boom, and I throw the wrist, boom, like this, as hard as I can. Those are the motions that I make that feel like I can produce the most speed. Like if I was to do it, it's a up, high, but it's weird, it's like a slower factor, it's not a, it's a, and that. And that's where it gets faster. So the actual motion going this way helps make this thing go faster. It loads it better, and then I can throw it better.
But you're saying not that the arm of the club isn't a deal. You're saying there's other places to look that may not be quite as invasive trying to change the arm of the club.
Sure. And I'll use the modern stretch shorten cycle. That might not be the spot he needs it, or he gets the greatest advantage from it. It may be somewhere else.
Where do you think? You think?
I don't know yet. I mean, I haven't looked at all your stuff, but
Well, let's look at all my stuff.
Yeah.
Let's do it. do we have the gas as well, or whatever? Or what do you
That's
think?
what I was doing.
I mean, there's.
Yeah.
Do you have full body or? I thought you might.
Yeah.
So,
Let's look at some signals.
Let's look. Let's have compare. Let's have two of them side to side. Let's go from there. Yeah, we do.
We do. But we can look at
Well,
There's Kyle's body here, right?
let's look at Bryson's body first.
Yeah.
So these are the two. This is creating torque in your frontal plane. This is creating torque in this sort of overhead view, horizontal plane.
Yep.
You got a pretty nice balanced match. Little interesting blip there, although that may be a bit of an artifact just on collection. Without a full 3D suit, I'd put that as a too nice pattern. So the two contributors to this are how much you push sideways with your trail foot, so getting that to go, essentially getting that to go sideways. Let me turn on your center of mass. There you go. And this includes through the end of swing and follow through, so don't worry about your center mass dropping off. So you got a nice sideways push. You drop it under. His is kind of ridiculous, but that's okay.
Well, I want to know what ridiculous is. So.
We'll get there.
Okay.
Then, like I said, you got, so that's the initial contributor, and then this is your real contributor, which is that the second portion is loading up on the left side and trying to apply that for the most part as upright as possible. Yours is up, it holds. It doesn't peak as much.
So, sure, you're basically getting into right now, like, you know, the contribution of the frontal plane from moment arm versus like the actual GRF, right? The relationship between the total GRF and the moment arm and how much frontal plane torque he's creating. Is that what you're looking at right now?
Sure.
Okay, so can we, I feel like that's getting into the weeds before we have a big picture of what's happening. Can we compare him to Kyle and see how the overall torques are different between the two?
Right.
Sure.
And then we can get into, okay, they're different, why are they different? I feel like we're getting into the why are they different without knowing the differences yet.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
So I'm going to say that Kyle is sort of off the chart.
Literally.
So actually, he's a part of this gets affected by body swing plane, club and arm delivery, but his frontal plane is about as high as it gets. In long drivers, we typically see let me do that the other way. People who play on course, we typically see a pretty close, pretty even contribution between horizontal plane and frontal plane. Long drivers, we're seeing, there aren't as many captures on them, but we're typically seeing a noticeably higher frontal plane contribution.
This is Kyle.
This is Kyle.
So having said that, is
That's mine.
you're saying the ratio of the frontal plane contribution to the horizontal plane contribution is bigger skewed in the frontal plane, but is the absolute value of the horizontal plane still greater than? So are they still creating tremendous horizontal plane? They just happen to be creating that much more frontal plane, or are they actually less of the horizontal plane in terms of the absolute amount of it?
So they're both 2022 horizontal, and that's normalized to their own body weight. So absolute numbers don't mean a whole lot.
I understand, but normalized, yeah.
So both are good.
Bryson and Kyle.
Yeah. About the same.
Okay, you're saying his frontal plane is just that much more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
27 for frontal planes, quite good,
Yeah, but Kyle's off the chart.
but he's at 40.
That's what I'm asking. Is because you're saying you started with the ratio that they have
Yes.
a better contribution. What I'm saying is the absolute of the horizontal still very high. And you're saying they're very similar.
Yeah.
Normalized, but the ratio is skewed because his frontal plane's that much more.
Yeah.
Per body weight normalized.
So they still long drive typically still puts out what would seem like a normal good horizontal plane. It's just this frontal plane is huge.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. And
So,
then,
yeah, why is it so big?
that gets to what you're saying originally. That was the first thing that he was getting at.
I've
That's what-
only got 5 or 6 of them now.
Yeah.
So
They're all like that?
either all or all but one.
Okay, so now Bryson's obviously, because you put him into categories of tournament golfers versus long drivers. Bryson's obviously very long for a tournament golfer. Does he have a proportionate, relative to other tournament golfers, does he have like that proportionate increase in the frontal plane relative to other golfers? Is his frontal plane much bigger than most other tournament golfers?
He has he's at 27 to 20, which would put him a little high in frontal plane compared to that's a 27 to 21 is a high frontal to horizontal ratio. So it puts him high for on-course players, but it's not in that 1.5 to 2 times that's what we're kind of seeing. Like if he were 30 to 20, 35 to 20, that's when we're starting to see like 2 to 1.
But we can't look at just the ratio, right? Because if someone in theory had 0 horizontal plane, then like very low frontal plane would still have a massive, would be like 5, infinite,
Well,
right?
they're not on any competitive tour
No,
like that.
okay.
So fair question.
Just want to make sure that we're
Yeah.
having a certain basement
Both highly skilled players.
of
and-
horizontal.
Yeah.
The more frontal plane torque someone has relative to horizontal plane torque, in general, their bodies can be more oriented this way through impact. Mike?
Frontal plane.
Frontal plane, right, Mike?
They're doing this one.
Yeah. So it also could be a function of them trying to get like angle of attacks are really up. So
Yeah.
it'd be interesting.
Yes.
So it'd be interesting to see.
And that's that. So what is your driver angle of attack?
My driver has about 5 or 6.
Okay.
Yeah, so
And they're looking at like
bowl
like
places.
7, 8 sometimes
Go bowl
angle
places.
attack.
Yeah, because there's some things that for ground forces we could talk about trying to change some things in this, but I think that force application pattern is modified to hit 5 up, and so I don't know that that's a trade that anybody wants to make.
Right, exactly. So this is the whole thing is I don't want to get because we're going to have the confounding variable that all the long drives will have incredible club head speed. So it's easy to make the correlation between the frontal plane torque being higher and club head speed, but really it could be somewhat of a function of angle of attack because we don't have the whole population of people who have the club head speeds of long drivers with the ones that don't have that same angle of attack. Because he may be optimizing for a lower angle of attack because of control, but still trying to get that high club head speed.
Okay.
And it might look like a completely different frontal plane profile,
Maybe.
right?
I mean, anything's possible.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, I just don't want to go down. I just want to consider that this frontal plane torque being so high could be at somewhat a level of getting a certain angle of attack.
But it also produces a lot of club head speed
Could.
as well.
This would be interesting to see if there's any guys with really high club head speeds who have somewhat lower angle attacks and what their frontal plane torque looks like.
Yeah.
It would be unusual that your accommodation to achieve a certain angle of attack would result in more torque, though.
Say again.
So it would be odd that your sacrifice for an angle of attack is that you end up with more torque.
Why?
Well, that's not a sacrifice.
In the whole bundle of shots that a tournament golfer has to hit, it could be.
No, but we're talking about the long drive. So you're saying that on course players are sacrificing some of that for
Having
so
a
who are you talking about?
more consistent angle attack to the back. So they may not be trying to have this massive deviation between a driver and, say, their irons.
Okay.
And therefore they may have like organically funneled into a pattern that doesn't have as much frontal plane torque because that lends itself to having.
You have down the line video on this.
So we do. So even when I think I've got Joe's stuff on here, and I think even when he's swinging an iron with an iron swing, I think I haven't looked at his stuff in a year and a half. So
That'd be interesting.
I think he still is
Tremendously
frontal plane dominant.
So you're going to see more frontal plane though from a Kyle, from where he's transitioning from, aren't you? Because he's got to do that to shallow it essentially. Bryson doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
He can just rotate on that axis, can't he?
More
Because it's
so.
already on that line.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Kyle, if he didn't have vertical like that, he's not going to get
Yes.
this club doing this.
That's how he shallowed it.
He couldn't, if he had pure torque, it's not going to get the club from where it is
Down there.
down there, is it?
Yeah.
I wouldn't imagine. That's going to throw it more out this way, isn't it?
Yeah, and through the ball, he's just not going to be so.
It's not going to go that way. Yeah, it's not going to like
So
get
which-
overcommitted and go that way, is it? He's doing that, isn't it? It's just that whole
Let's-
deceleration profile.
His bellows would have more sway toward the target. Are you surprised about that?
Not with that amount of hip tone, because you're looking at a fixed point.
No, him, because we've always thought of him being, kind of here.
Yeah,
But
no, but
he's
I think this
actually-
is more recent, so
Yeah.
you've done
This
less
is
of that now.
I'm
Yeah,
changed.
Yeah, so that's more, I would say historically, yes, you'd see more
Yeah.
left, but that's what you've worked on.
But he's
hasn't
getting
it?
50 degrees.
When is this? When was the swing
this,
taken?
This is,
December, I think.
yeah,
Yeah,
this is
December
50
this
degrees of hip turn here.
Mhm.
Can you just show me where you were then and where you are now?
Well, I was more this way,
You were more left to begin with, too.
Yeah.
right, and now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that with the left hip moving across, the center will move much more.
Now, their measures, so he's got probably at least 2 inches of lift and backswing, which
What's like typical? Or
that I would consider that to be pretty good lift.
That's pretty good.
how much left? Can you see the lateral off that as well, the center man?
Yeah, so these are,
Is that
this could be close to the same, sorry.
Looking at center mass trail lead,
Yes.
so that's 3 inches away, 3.5 inches away.
Yeah, these are, yeah, I would ballpark it at 3 inches.
Okay.
Now keep in mind, that's center of mass, it's not just pelvis.
Yeah, okay.
So the
So the
arms
arms and
going,
everything, yeah.
so
Yeah, gotcha.
I would round that down.
Got it.
But that's,
Could you keep playing it through?
yeah.
You want a different view of the work?
Ready?
Okay, I'm ready. Come back up.
Like, look how much closer his shoulders are, Bryson's. That's what allows him to swing from the inside. Kyle's coming very sort of over and steep looking. See the difference
Kiss
where the
his
club is?
bicep.
Like, you can see the club's coming above his right shoulder with Kyle. And Bryson's way below.
That's why he's got to have the vertical.
Yeah, the frontal plane that you were saying before.
You think it's more vertical than this now, Bryson? You guys? Is it-
From a swing plane
This is May.
Oh, yours.
of last year? Oh, probably. What do you think, Chris?
Maybe a little bit. I think not right now, but like I think that's the problem when you run to the when you do the speed only, you get more like that where it's steep and you feel wipe across it.
It's interesting, huh?
How much was it going back on the, look at the pelvis and the face?
It's like you said, like when you go hard, you feel like you're gonna cut it.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting closer to it.
starts a lot taller, actually.
Yeah.
Just watch it.
Because he unweights himself so quickly.
Watch how fast his backswing to the end of it is.
Oh yeah, one.
It's like you're faster early.
That's what I noticed. That's the biggest difference I noticed in all of this
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah.
And then see how I was able to like load it longer, or rotation of the hips slowing down faster. That's those.
So your hip rotational velocity peaks later. So it ends up being like an energy bleed because it's not transferring up to the next segment.
It's not an impulse almost, right?
You're just, it's delayed, so it's lost. So you're not getting the most out of that peak. Like it's like cracking a whip, but putting like a steel bar at the first piece of it. You know what I mean? You just kind of lose it.
Chris, did you hear that?
I did. So how much of that do you think is related to him having a much longer backswing? Everything more back, the longer backswing, more lag on the way down, to where it has to start decelerating early to get it out, to get all those angles out in a sense.
It's such a weird, and it's so hard to answer because I don't think there's a definitive answer. It's just how his body has solved this problem.
Sure.
You know, and I think that he has slightly different elastic properties in his tissues. I think he just moves differently. He has to take advantage of different neural components because he's not as strong, right?
So if the hypothesis is that Bryson's hips decelerate too late in the downswing, and therefore as much of that whole like energy doesn't get that is created doesn't get out by the time he gets to impact relative to Kyle.
Yeah, they maximum impact there.
How can we answer that to be true or not? Because that's sort of the huh?
Say it again, sorry.
Because you're saying the hypothesis is that Bryson's hips decelerate too late relative to impact.
It just makes it harder to rotate everything else because it's like trying to anchor yourself on a waterbed as opposed to the ground a little bit. It's a bit of an exaggeration, but if your hips are still moving as you're trying to get maximum speed on the other parts of the chain, you know,
And then
it's like you're trying to. Oh my God! I saw your video where you swung after jumping off a diving board. A baby version of that concept, right? But it's interesting because I mean I know that swing is old, but he rotates his hip and he is all the way up here when you're here, so he's able to take advantage of the anterior chain on the front leg because you could push and decelerate and slam on the brakes a lot easier this way as opposed to this way, right? I don't care how strong you are. This is going to be
So
stronger.
he's going. It's almost like I need to as I go down, go this way,
and
and
then
then.
use that as opposed to that to decelerate and slam on the brakes.
Wait. Up. So it's push off, and then go here.
It's about the direction where you put it. So by the time you actually drive and put force into that front leg, where are your hips are more here, his are out here. So he's able to push like that. So he's almost like kicking himself back.
Right.
Whereas because you're strong enough and your hips are stable enough, you can get away with being here and slam on the brakes this way.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is like, so you're saying up. So is he starting more like this then?
No.
No, after he comes through, his hips are just more. He's actually turning everything. It's if I exaggerate, you're coming through here and he's coming through like this.
Oh, he turns that way and then he
Yeah,
presses.
he's coming here and he's
His foot's
pressing.
not moving though. His foot's, he's actually going to quite a bit of internal rotation with his left hip, I would believe. Can we pull up
Internal
this?
rotation?
Yeah, relative speaking.
He's more like
Relative
Casey
speaking.
looks like that.
Tom?
Paul Casey looks more like that too. He's pushing this way.
Right, but I don't think his foot's that way though. His foot's still pretty, because if you look, so I filmed it from history.
Oh, that's interesting. So he goes this way. He actually goes outside that way.
Like I bet you if we have pressure
Oh,
sensors
hold
in
up,
his
hold
foot,
up. He actually goes like this. He pushes he doesn't push from the inside. He actually pushes from the outside and turns it that way.
Yeah, we can do that.
That's interesting because watch his foot.
Yeah.
So it's a,
Yeah, I agree with that.
right? He almost pushes from the outside like
Yeah, he
that.
does.
Instead of,
and it collapses it.
because it doesn't do this. It literally
That
goes.
would be nice if we got these two things
Well,
going
if you look
together at the
at
same time.
his vertical force on front foot was way more sloped in.
Yeah. So he's definitely using this way,
Yeah.
not that way. Right?
Yeah.
Because if he's this way, it's almost like he's pushing that way. If you're pushing that against this way, it's going to be pushing more angled this way,
Yeah.
right?
Like he's just decelerating a lot harder.
All I was saying was that his foot doesn't turn out until after he's done pushing.
Is it on the
No,
outside
yeah,
of
I
his
mean-
foot more?
The only thing I'm trying to point out is
hips.
the hip angle.
I know.
So when he,
What is he doing?
Yeah,
I don't get it.
but you're showing this with the hip angle. I'm saying it's actually going to internal rotation with that hip angle.
yeah,
Yes.
but
his
they're also
foot-
still exactly.
How's
I know
his
what
foot
you're
there?
talking.
So he's more on the,
But he's still
Having a bottom
pushing,
foot.
because his hips are rotated this way, he's actually still pushing
Well,
back and
but he's
taking advantage of that
extending.
anterior chain to get the rotation.
So look at
of
this.
his
He's
hips.
still extending the hips too. Watch. He's still extending the hips.
his lead hip is back inside his foot more so, isn't
For example, like you're saying this. Oops. With the angle, see I'm putting the angle on the shaft. You're saying the force vector is more angled back.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and what I'm saying though is that he extends the hips this way while moving back.
Yeah, like I think if we had like force sensors throughout his shoe, I think it would all just be like right there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Bottom string.
Is that Kyle? Deceleration, the direction of force.
Deceleration of
Hips.
rotation.
Yeah.
So that's
Through the direction of his front foot pressure.
this.
But where is it coming from? Or is that actually what it's showing right there?
So
Because could that vector be off the heel if it was being pressed off the heel? You know what I'm saying? So does it show the location of where the force is actually coming through, the average force is coming through?
this view, so that's what his left foot is doing right there, that push. People talk about that all the time as being what slows down the hips, like the rotation. They're wrong.
Is the vector coming off, if you were to press different parts of the force through that gas system,
Oh, yeah.
would it show the force vector coming out through here or the average, I don't know if
Yes.
average is the right way to say it, but the,
Like what part of his foot is he pushing through?
you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so if we, and I'm going to turn off his center mass for a minute just because it'll
Smell.
no. So we're gonna. This is what turns his hips. This view. The bottom of the arrow is actually what's the weighted average, but it's where
Most of the
yeah. So you'll see.
force is coming.
So he's more toward toes. He's actually way up on his lead toe, but
Yeah.
that's about the only thing touching the force plate.
Yep.
Actually, here we'll do this. So he's ball of foot.
Can we do that one for me real quick? I'm sorry. Those are cool.
So this is that huge
Yep.
horizontal torque generator.
But he's not doing it off the heel. He does it off the both toes.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah, but it's because of the initiation of the switch, right? Of the vectors. So go back a couple frames. So right there, right? The orientation is still rotating the hips, and as it starts moving this way, that it doesn't have to even cross. I mean, velocity-wise, yes. Once it crosses, then absolutely, I think it slows it down. But as those the orientation of the vectors start to move, doesn't that isn't that already slowing down? You know what I mean?
So there's one part where what he's saying is the acceleration is lowering. So even though the acceleration may be in a certain direction, it's starting to lower as those arrows are changing. The acceleration is left, and then when they flip, the acceleration becomes negative acceleration. So the acceleration is ramping up in one direction, and then it starts to lower, but it's in the same direction, and then eventually it goes into deceleration, and that's when. And then, but at the same time, what you're saying is there could also be the reaction from the trunk.
Hold on. I'm talking about the torque going in, not the acceleration. So there's the torque going in from the ground.
Okay.
Then there's whether or not the acceleration is positive or negative at that time.
Okay. So there's the acceleration is going to be contributed by the torque going in from the ground,
Yep.
but then also as a reaction to the trunk against
Exactly.
that.
Yep.
So that's where I was going with it. Was to break up into
Yes.
three things. So if we're to just look at the torque from the ground
Yep.
to the pelvis, what he's saying is you have the acceleration going up, but then as the arrows start to move, the acceleration is still positive, but it's lessening, and then eventually they'll flip, and then that's when it becomes deceleration from this torque aspect of it to the pelvis, just that relationship. But then what you're saying, there's also the contribution of the torso moving, which is going to have a reaction force and torque on the pelvis
It's
as
a
well.
combination of the two motions.
So it's from both sides. The pelvis is being acted on from the torque happening from the ground and from the torque happening from the trunk. And the acceleration will be showing from the net of both of those acting on the
There you
pelvis.
go, yes.
But I'm trying to break it up into the different components of it to start.
Yes.
So there's a couple things he's saying. First was, he was just saying the whole idea of the acceleration is going to be lessening just from the ground, that part. So you have the accelerations. The acceleration
Because
to the pelvis.
of the orientation of the vectors. Of
Yeah,
the
so
torque vectors.
this graph shows how much horizontal torque is
totally just from the
coming
ground.
in from the ground.
Yes.
Horizontal.
Yes,
I'm looking at,
which is
That's what you're looking at.
the
Okay.
hips rotate on an almost horizontal plane, so it's a really good parallel. They're off by 15
I'm
meters.
trying to
So it's
isolate it
close.
from,
Yeah.
from the ground action force first,
Yeah.
but then we bring into the reaction torque from the torso,
Right.
and then it becomes the net of it all.
Yeah, so I mean, if we take the hip velocity curve, or the hip acceleration curve, we'd see that the hips have already slowed.
Before that, because this is
So
acting.
the upper body was already winning.
Yeah.
So even though we were still putting in
Positive
torque from below, the shoulder
Is all setting.
decelerative
It's trying to like
effect.
grab the hips, like, no, no, my
Yeah,
hand.
yeah.
It's like,
It's like, it's like if we had like a little like toy car, I'm standing on it,
the lock is out.
it's accelerating, but he's saying the acceleration is dropping, but I'm still going this direction. So that's what he was saying originally was about, and then eventually if it starts to decelerate, that's
Goes
what
to negative
it's what
acceleration.
he's saying. But then when you're saying at the same time, I'm jumping off the cart and it's pushing the cart back a little bit.
it's almost like if you're in
the
the car
pelvis.
going this way and he's on the car behind you and he's the ribs, he's like, or you get the shoulders, he's like reaching in front of you and using you to pull himself. Like,
Oh.
and that's what's accelerating.
It's total roller derby. It's the whip.
Yeah.
I think we got we're on the same page. Yeah.
And yeah, we need to. There are 2 videos I need to do with you, and that's one of them.
Okay.
The other one does not involve a high dive anymore.
Okay.
But
We'll call it like swing, whatever. Bow versus swing cut.
yeah.
Can we notate 2 different swings? So let's do like a little data collection. We'll do one swing, 5 trials, another swing, 5 trials.
Yeah.
Okay, so when do we want to start that?
When you get to 150. That's what I thought I could
And when we do this, treat this like it's an iron, like you're trying to hit a yard, so we're trying to go fast as possible. Is that fine?
Yeah. What do you want to look at?
Yeah, just like another thing. So it's actually slower, but the path is more inside out, and the angle of attack is less. So we go to the bow, the rate of closure is slower, it's more into out.
The
angle
bow
of
is
attack
this
down.
way. Right.
Yeah, and the angle of attack is less down. Right?
Yep, speed's a lot higher with the cup.
Which is super interesting, and the low point is actually farther forward
Yeah.
with the cup.
Yeah,
But I chunk it.
So you feel like you're chunking.
speed.
Oh, it's just because the arc is longer.
Is this
Check
just
this
one-
out.
is this one-
So if I'm here, right?
But the angle of attack's actually more down with the cup.
You might need to choke up on the cup one.
Well, no, I'm just saying, like,
This is just one swing, but this is not the average.
Right.
Can we do
oh, what is the average?
Let's see, average here was, you just look at closure rate. That's the average of bow. Club head speed's 106, almost somewhere in there, right?
You're looking at angle attack, right?
He would,
Average is 3.8.
3.8,
Okay.
6 path.
can you do grip
the other one?
rotation? Can you do grip rotation also?
Grip roll. 1957. Okay, then let's go to the other one. Let's do the Bryson Cup. Oh. Angle of attack.
More down.
More down.
path, less right.
Less inside out.
Yeah.
That makes
Closure
sense.
rate higher.
Closure rate higher.
Makes sense, right?
Wait, why?
Because it's moving longer.
Oh, it may be a function of, so it's grip roll. Let's look at grip roll.
Speed's a lot higher.
With grip roll.
And that's an impact though. This is all an impact.
More roll. More grip roll.
Even with a cup.
The cup has more grip roll.
Oh, the cup has more grip roll.
So you're just
But it's not
changing-
changing the orientation of the grip at all.
Otherwise, you're still swinging. It was just.
It's just there instead of there.
The timing of the swings is definitely different.
Is the radius shorter on the
Radius is shorter.
flexion one?
On the cup, no, it's on the bow, the radius is shorter.
Yeah, on the bowed one it's shorter,
Yeah.
which makes sense.
It definitely changes the timing of things. No question. Look at that.
Are those matched to impact there?
You change.
I'm trying, they definitely different timing, so I can sync them up at different.
Just, I mean, Mike, I would just either sync them up at address and see the timing, or where did you sync those up? In transition?
Transition. We'll start with address. You want to see that club face difference there?
Sure. I think that's too early though. I'd rather see it later.
Okay.
Is it interesting how it's more on the top? Like the theorist. What about there is what you want? Or a little further?
I mean, we can.
Right
So can we get any?
there.
So can we get the values on the?
You can see the orientation there. It's already. Look how much more open that thing is.
So can we see the?
What's the difference in the face angle?
The blue is going to be more closed. Yeah, 100%. It's already more closed. It's square going in impact, even though there's a higher closure rate.
Yeah.
Come on.
So this is where.
There's a higher closure rate, but it's already more square earlier.
Like right through there. So look at this. It's 15.9 degrees open versus 17.1.
That's 2 degrees.
That's a big deal.
It's a massive deal.
Keep going. What is that difference? Look at that. That's 3 degrees coming into the impact. So keep going. So this is the whole 3D flat spot hypothesis. So you go,
Yep.
keep going right there. Let's say where there's even farther. Get close to impact. If right now the yellow is 2.6 degrees open at impact, and if it's say 2.6 degrees open 2 inches before impact, then it's not really more closed relative to the impact it's creating. It's got the same relationship to the impact it's creating.
Yes, so it's staying more stable farther back.
Well, if they
Right?
were the same impact, and if both impacts, let's say both were 0 at impact with the face, and then 2 inches before impact, the face, the blue one was 2 degrees open, and the yellow one was 4 degrees open, that means the yellow one is rotated 4 degrees to get to that same impact, and the blue is rotated 2 degrees to get to the same
Correct.
impact. So that would be more stable in that case. But what I'm saying is, if the yellow is 2 degrees open, and the blue is 0 degrees, and then 2 inches before impact, the yellow is 4 degrees open, and the blue is 2 degrees open, they both rotate 2 degrees to get to the impact. So they would have the same
Similar.
stability.
It's a similar.
But I think we're more misinterpreting stability for position of club face.
Sure.
So what I mean by that is that if I did have a 4 degree open face at a certain point before impact, that to my brain is like, oh my God, that's not a usable ball flight.
It would be if the path is right enough.
But that's what I'm saying is the path isn't stable enough. So you gotta independently move these from a 3D flat spot. It's gotta be one scenario of closure rate of the head and one scenario with club path, and you have to integrate the two of them to see if they match, right?
You could just do a face-to-path sort of scenario on both of them over different parts in time.
Yep.
So it would be a face-to-path 3D flat spot sort of motion, pre-impact and going into impact.
Okay, so
Right?
so yeah, so I think what he's saying too is like, tell me this is kind of what you're saying. So it's like, if there's an interval where impacts could happen, does the face-to-path have a relationship that creates a usable ball flight throughout that interval? So,
Correct.
So really what we'd be wanting is a face-to-path number throughout the whole motion.
Yes,
We have that, don't we?
that's what you're asking.
Do we have the face-to-path number throughout each point?
We have it, we just don't have it displayed. We would have to write it
That
down.
would be massive.
That would be cool.
And at the end of the day, it's not even really having the same face path, because like, if the path is 10 degrees to the right, you're gonna need a face that's like 6 degrees to the right. If the path is 0 degrees to the right, if it's
0 degrees.
you don't want a face that's 4 degrees close
No,
to
no,
that.
no. You want
because that'd be
you want a
cool
0,
look,
0.
right? So it's like, it's having like the right ratio where that path is.
Through
point.
the ball striking capability areas. Right? I mean, that's just...
So in a sense, for someone who's got like more of an arc at the bottom, they actually need a bigger change of face to that path to have matching impacts to create
Oh
usable
my
ball
god,
flights.
so it's matching club path to closure rate is what you're doing to create usable ball flights for a good player. That's very interesting.
So
Chris.
for someone who has like a less change in the path, the face would change less. For someone who's got more of a change in the path, the face would need to change more.
But even though that they have less closure rate, they can still be just as errant
Correct.
as people if they don't have the right
Matching.
rate of change of path.
Yeah.
And angle of attack potentially too, right? I mean, you can go that 3-dimensional.
Closure rate might not be as big of a factor.
It's
As-
it's a relationship to its
It's a
path.
relationship
Correct.
to path that matters.
So higher closure rates might match high changes in path.
Yeah.
Like, imagine this line as a target line. Someone has like could have a very sort of flat shaft angle plane at least.
No, I'm not
Just
talking
like
about shaft.
the club head.
Yeah,
Just the club head.
we're talking about,
How much does vertical swing plane influence that?
yes.
Okay, that is something we can measure very quickly.
So I would say no. So watch this. Here's an
Is
example.
that a usable metric though?
Here's an example. So you're saying flatter plane, straighter path. Is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay.
And if you had a perfectly vertical swing plane,
Yeah.
you'd have
A straight path.
the only thing that would change would be as the club head rotates about the shaft.
But this is where you have to change the hand path with it uncocking the club. So for example, like watch this club head. This is gonna be a very flat swing plane. So that was a super straight path. Right?
Sure.
So if you
It
have
went straight along the floor.
huh?
It went straight along the floor.
Well, it went straight towards the target. It had very little change in its path orientation. So by any definition of straight, it would be
Okay.
very straight, but it had a dead flat plane.
And very flat. So you're talking like this. You're saying this. You're saying this.
Yeah. So if we were assuming that it's just the hand path staying the same, then sure, the flatter the plane, the more
Arc
arc
it
it's going to
gets.
have. What I'm saying is you can have a change in the hand path. It's almost like this example where I can have these hands on joints. So I think you could have scenarios where the plane is dead flat. This is just an extreme example, but the plane is dead flat. But you could have a path that has zero changes in its path throughout this whole interval.
Right. I mean, in a
For an illustration, because some guys
Right,
do.
I got you.
Some guys have a little bit more of this. Will have more of that effect, and some people have more of this, which would have. So now imagine this. This is going to have a massive change in path.
Yeah, I'm with you. So once we get within the constraints of a real golf swing, I'm wondering what I'm wondering is can the hand path still play enough of a role to override the effect of that plane? And I don't know the answer.
Probably at a percentage basis, yes, and then yeah. I mean, you have the constraints of how much hand paths change, and you have the constraints of how much planes change, and it's probably changing those ratios a little bit.
Yeah, I'm wondering which one. Is there enough option in your hand path to override what that swing plane is going to require? But we can't answer that today. If Michael had 1,000 swings and played with it already, he could talk to us, but it's...
Right, but even thought experiment wise, like override, there's not really a threshold per se, right? It's just saying one's going to have an effect and the other one will have an effect, and then what's the net? or no?
Right, but if the hands can only alter that by realistically 5 degrees in a real swing, and the plane creates 10, then the plane wins. And then Bryson's question is going to be, well, we have to look at the influence of the plane first, hand second. But if it's an equal contribution of each, then his question is wide open, and you can do whichever you want.
I mean, yeah, to me it just seems like you look at both, right? I think.
Yeah.
Here. And one's more heavily weighted than the other one, right? Like one will be, like, plane might be more heavily weighted.
Yeah, and short of having that answer, it's
Is that changing in the time?
we're back to doing the best we can.
Yeah. Let's say for a halfway decent player, what's happening here almost doesn't matter because no one's gonna make contact with the ball here. The worst swing possible, they're never made contact with the ball here. So like someone can have the face dead open and they get it good late, it doesn't matter. What we're saying is like, if this is their impact, what's happening here? Because they may slide on a little bit more, something may happen, and they may catch in that part of the arc. So it's almost like a defined little interval where impacts could happen. Yeah. What's happening during that interval? Because that's what's going to say, that may be what predicts the whole range of shot a person hits. Like in golf, we're always talking about like the bundle of shots, not like on like tracking and all this.
Anybody can hit a good shot 100 or 200 yards out.
Yeah, I hit good shots.
Surprisingly.
Sometimes.
It's about how frequent you are. It's the frequency.
Not often.
It's the frequency and magnitude of the bad shots.
Yeah, right. And then it's just like, you know, are there spots? Are there potential places in that interval where he has like a wildly unusable impact, and that could be a person's big miss potentially.
When you talk to young guys or